Welcome one, welcome all. This is the NFC East Mixtape volume. I'm not totally sure you can listen to this show on any of SB Nation's 4 NFC East podcast network. For Dallas Cowboys content, Bleeding Green Nation. For Philadelphia Eagles, Hogs Haven. For Washington Commanders, the losers. Big Blue View for New York Giants. You can watch us on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB. And if you are watching us, I know we have a lot of Philly-centric fans. I am wearing a Houston Astros jersey. You're welcome. All right, you're welcome. That my team is so good enough, Brandon, that we could lay down. All right, lay down in the final meaningless games of the regular season, so you and the Phillies and Dallas Cowboys fan Bryce Harper can sneak your way into the playoffs in the NL.
Won't be the first time that a Philly-based sports team beats a Texas-based sports team this month. The second game will probably be a little bit more meaningful. RJ, I have a stat for you here. I'm no Rob Stats Guerrera, but I do have a stat for you.
People can hear us with Rob Stats Guerrera, by the way, every Friday
right.
over on the SB Nation NFL show. Subscribe there, leave a rating, write a review. If you'll allow me, I'm going to sandwich this in very quickly, then we'll get to your thing.
I was just watching a video about a sandwich. That's really funny.
Right on. Well, subscribe to your preferred NFC East team podcast network. Leave a rating, write a review to your favorite place, of course, but go somewhere else. Leave a rating, write a review. You don't have to subscribe, but we do have a new review on the BTB side of things if you're ready.
Yeah.
We actually should have gotten to this last week. We didn't, but it comes to us from Times Yours. It is a 5-star rating. It says too many initials, BLG and RJ Mixtape. It says great content, plenty of non-biased opinion, delivering thoroughly, slightly manic football takes with a touch of civility. Highly entertaining. Side note, Cooper Rush. LOL. So there's that on the Cooper Rush side of this equation. But yeah, so shout out to the listener. Shout out to you. What were you going to say? Your little cute story, whatever it was going to be?
Shout out to loyal listener Ben Wieland. It's WIELAND. Ben Wieland on Twitter, who tweeted to me that the NFC East, RJ, has an 8-2 record against non-division opponents. That is the best in the NFL through 4 weeks. The NFC Beast, RJ.
It's back. I mean, seriously, imagine being in the division and not having at least 3 wins. Like, can you imagine that? Because I can't. I mean, some people are saying I'm not, but the Washington Commanders have never won an NFC East game. You know, like that's never happened. And the long, rich, we'll get to Ron Rivera's comment, history of the Washington Commanders. They have never won a game within the division. How sad.
It's a tough look to be a commander.
Wow. Really tough times. Of course, we're going to go through all 4 teams in the NFC East. We have some good times to get to. We had another NFC East game happen this past week, one that made me very happy. Not quite the NFC East apocalypse that happened in week 3, but still some good times nonetheless. We have a team that is kind of the consensus number 1 as far as most power rankings are concerned, although not according to the worldwide leader. I'm sure you saw that, Brandon, and I'm sure plenty of Eagles fans were upset about that. Let's go ahead and get into them. The Philadelphia Eagles, the last undefeated team in the NFL. I meant to make note of this on Monday on the SB Nation NFL show. Peter King wrote about it in Football Morning in America. I believe at week 5 last year, there were like 4 undefeated teams. And maybe 2 years ago, there were like 8. I don't know if you know the stat off the top of your head, but this is for anyone who feels like there are normally more undefeated teams than just one right now. There normally are. The Eagles standing alone is kind of a rare thing right now.
Since 2000, RJ, the last undefeated team in the NFL has made the Super Bowl 10 times. So not to say it's a guarantee, but
10 out of 21, right?
Yeah. And only one of those has won it, to be clear. But still, like it's it's not meaningless that they're the only remaining undefeated team.
Do you know who the last undefeated team was a year ago?
I don't remember.
It was the Arizona Cardinals. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, they lost to the Packers.
I don't remember who it was 2 years ago, though.
No, I don't remember. But the point is, they typically, it's a good sign typically. They usually at the very least make the playoffs.
But again, normally that's partly, and I don't want to poo-poo it, but that's because normally the last undefeated team falls in like week 8 or 9, not week 5. If that were to be the case here,
yes,
incidentally, it would be against the Cardinals. But Eagles are on track for many solid
It's not
things.
Meaningless is the point.
Agreed. 29-21, the score. Philadelphia fell. I have some thoughts, by the way. Philadelphia fell down 14-0. against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jason Kelsey I loved the jacket swap with Doug Peterson. I gave Jason Kelsey his flowers last week. That was really funny. Forced 5 fumbles on Trevor Lawrence, recovered 4 of them. Kind of a ho-hum day for Jalen Hurts as far as the box score is concerned. Only 204 yards, did have the pick 6. Miles Sanders, hello, welcome to the conversation. It feels like every week there's a different Eagle who's kind of like, this is the Miles Sanders week. Last week was the Devontae Smith week, and next week it's, I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe it's the Dallas Goedert week, but I know you've written that already this season at Bleeding Green Nation, that at different weeks, different players are going to go off.
Yeah, that speaks to the talent on the roster. There's just like, it's not like they're relying on just AJ Brown to be the guy every single week, week in, week out. Someone can step up. A different player can step up. Hassan Reddick was huge in this game.
Oh, some people said he was better than Micah Parsons. Don't forget.
I mean, did I say that?
I recall an episode of BGN Radio being tweeted at me several times where you put together a group with Jimmy Kempski, and you said that you would take Hassan Reddick over Micah Parsons.
I remember. Yeah, I wasn't even like thinking. I was like looking at my phone or something. Yeah, it was. I did not make an impassioned plea. That's what happened to that. Like, I was just like, I totally spaced out and just agreed with Jimmy or something like that. Anyway, Hassan Reddick was huge. The Eagles did benefit from 2 Jags fumbles that happened probably just because it was like raining and wet, and like Trevor Lawrence just like dropped the ball somehow. You almost did that twice, but still they did force 3 legit ones as well, and took advantage. Offense wasn't humming like it was in the sense of scoring a ton of points as it has this season, but didn't really need that because it wasn't a big day through the air. They were relying on last year's strategy of kind of like, pounding the rock, and it worked very well. And it was good to see from an Eagles perspective that they were able to come back. Like, they got down 14-0. I've seen plenty of Eagles games, RJ, where that's, they've gone down and they haven't come back. And you could see how that would unfold where, like, okay, Doug Peterson is getting his revenge. Oh, the Jags are better. Frank Reich was right. The Jags are better than everyone thinks. And that didn't happen. The Eagles didn't really panic. Jalen Hurts didn't have a great game, as you mentioned in the box score, but the run he had on 4th down after the Eagles had gotten – yeah, like, and he taking that big hit and then getting up right afterwards. That was like the turning point of the game. It's like, okay, we're gonna get back in this. We're gonna be fine. No one panic. We're gonna be cool. Everyone just like keep doing what we're doing. And that's what they did. And the Jags had a chance to kind of come back at the end, but it was very short lived. And the Eagles controlled the game once they got ahead for the most part. Scored 29 unanswered points for a stretch there. It was pretty good.
I don't put a lot of stock into this, but something I like to look at when I am kind of like making the Monday morning, sort of dance through all the box scores is what were the longest runs and longest receptions of each team. Obviously, you don't get a chance to watch every single game. And I thought it was notable that nobody on the Eagles who had a rushing attempt had a run short or lesser than, fewer than, whatever, 10 yards. And that was Kenneth Gainwell. So like the shortest, long run was to everybody who ran the ball had at least a double-digit carry, which is, again, speaks to kind of the success happening on the ground. The Miles Sanders thing, 27 carries, like, whoa. I mean, I don't know the last time he had 27 carries. I have to imagine it was, maybe
it was a career game.
Yeah, I mean, it was wild. I have him on my fantasy team, both regular season and Dynasty. I know everybody cares. Also have Austin Eckler and Breece Hall, like good times for me, seriously. This was, I think, a good response. I think it would have been easy to say, oh man, we're down 14-0. It's raining. What's going on? It's Doug on the other sideline. There were understandable, like we've seen a lot of NFL teams fold in that way. And this is where, like, look, I'm not talking to you, Brandon. If you're an Eagles fan, you have every reason in the world to feel proud of your team, right? You have every reason in the world to like beat your chest and feel like you are going to be a legitimate contender in the NFL this season. You are. It's not going to be. You are, right? I mean, we're only in week 5, whatever, but you are. Quit being so soft. I don't know if you saw this, Brandon. I tweeted out during Sunday's action. I tweeted the Philadelphia Eagles are trailing. I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but it was literally just the score. I tweeted the Jacksonville Jaguars are up 14-0 on the Philadelphia Eagles. And all these soft Eagles fans like coming at me later on in the day, tweet the score now. It's like, it's just a score. Like, just chill out. Like, scream insecurity a little bit more, guys. Like be a little bit more proud in your team. All I did was tweet the score. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. This was a big win for the Eagles, non-conference, so whatever. I don't know if it's intra or do you know if it's inter?
So inter would be like like in
the
baseball,
Vikings?
they call interleague play would be AL and NL. So this would be.
This is inter.
This is inter. Yeah, intra is your own conference. Yes.
So like if it, when the Eagles beat the Vikings, that was intra-conference play.
Yes, correct.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, great win by the Eagles. Next up, we've been kind of like low-key hyping this up a little bit, a road trip all the way out west to take on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, okay. I thought you were switching topics. Sorry. I was like,
No,
I don't know
no,
if
no,
you gave enough time to the Eagles here.
No, like I'm just like the win over the Jaguars is what it was. Like I don't know that there was enough from the game. I mean, it was impressive, but now they're 4-0. They're the last undefeated team in the NFL. This is, this is arguably their toughest game, contingent on what happens with the Cowboys quarterback situation. Sure. You can argue that Dak returning makes that more tough. But if Dak doesn't play next week, and we'll get to that, this is maybe the toughest game on paper for the Eagles this week until week 12 at against the Packers on Sunday Night Football, right? Like, I mean, I know but so everyone knows that the opponents between now and then, Dallas, bye, Pittsburgh, Houston, Washington, fraud, Indianapolis. I mean, none of those teams are scary right now to anyone, let alone the Eagles.
It's a good path. A couple of things I want to hit on. The vibes are just really good. They really are. Like, there's just not much you can like poke holes in and be like, this is kind of weird or concerning. I mean, the Eagles did get some injuries in this game, which is something to monitor moving forward. Jordan Mailata got knocked out early, got banged up. We don't know the full extent as we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, October 4th. So that's something to monitor. But Nick Sirianni did say everyone who did get hurt has a chance to play this week. So there's no indications, anything like season-ending injuries by any means. Samalo also got banged up. Like, it didn't matter. They still produced on the ground. And against the number one run defense in the NFL. Like, the Jags were like shutting the run down. Didn't matter. Eagles like just steamrolled them. We saw that last year when the Saints came to Philly and they like the number one run defense in the NFL. Didn't matter. Eagles just like ran all over them. So that's definitely something to be afraid of. And it speaks to how like diverse the Eagles are in offense. They don't just need to win with their passing attack. It hasn't just been Jalen Hurts being good. It's like, they can pound the rock too when they need to. And that's also another weapon that teams have to account for. So that was good, I would say. And Jimmy Kempski pointed this out on BGN Radio, where the Jags got up big on the Colts and the Chargers in recent weeks. And they held on, obviously, and won big. So it wasn't like the Jags were never in that spot. Like, for the Eagles to come back, those teams couldn't. And those teams, are clearly lesser than the Eagles, especially the Colts. But, credit there as well. And, yeah, I think overall, just, it was a really quality win against a good head coach in Doug Peterson. And I really liked seeing, all the stuff after the game with Doug getting his flowers from whatnot from the players and coaches. So Eagles are on top. Do you think they're the best team in the NFL?
So I mentioned
were they
power rankings. They're number one, but they were number one for me last week. So I mentioned kind of in a cheeky way, I think it's ESPN has the Chiefs as number one, right? I think the Eagles are actually third in ESPN's power rankings.
I think you have to say they're top two at the very least.
Like, well, I'm just telling you what theirs are. Like,
yeah, again, I'm just saying. I think you can. I think you can argue the Bills are ahead of them, but I don't.
That's who. Yeah. So ESPN, they're the and like ESPN was one of the lower people on the Cowboys too. So like, maybe you just disagree with the way they're evaluating everything. But their top three are Chiefs, Bills, Eagles. I have Eagles, Chiefs, Bills. I think is my top three. It's been a long day, obviously.
Like that Colts loss was fluky, obviously, for the Chiefs, but still really bad. Like, you have to ding them for that. It was really bad.
And I do think that they had like the best possible response that they could have, obviously, but they still lost.
But it was still bad. Yeah,
I do think there's something stupid, but somewhat fair to like, well, they're the last undefeated team. The same way it's like if the Rams were 4-0 and the Eagles were 4-0, but the Rams had played the way they had, like, I do think there's something to be like, well, they're the reigning world champs, right? Like they're still the best until they lose or whatever. Like, right. I don't fully buy that argument, but you get my point. I think that they are whatever. Whether you feel they're the best team in the NFL is moot, because they're clearly the best team in the NFC right now.
Yeah.
And I think
it's not close.
But the biggest, like, and I'm truly like, this is just like real. This isn't like trolling or anything. If I was an Eagles fan, I would be a lesser person. But my concern would be that the good vibes and all the peaking was happening way too early. Like this is so like we see that, right? We see like who is the one team that has managed to like sustain good vibes? The Chiefs, right? In the Patrick Mahomes era. So you're either banking on being that, which is possible, or, it will fizzle out, or the NFL-ness of it all will catch up to you. And maybe you survive the NFL-ness of it all. And that's a silly worry, but that's the only worry you can kind of come up with, when it comes to the Eagles, because every other team, particularly in the NFC, is dealing with something. Every other team in the NFC is still finding themselves. And credit to the Eagles for not wasting time and doing that in the offseason. But I still think the Vikings are to be taken seriously, and I give the Eagles credit for that win. I mean, the Vikings look very questionable, right? And they're 3-1, right? Like that's a true thing. And in my power rankings, they're the second best team in the NFC just by virtue of ranking. Who's better? Like who can you put ahead of the Vikings right now?
Yeah, I think like if we're talking about the team, like who has the argument for second place, the Packers are there, even though I don't feel good about it, given that they almost just lost to freaking Bailey Zappi, but like they're
and
in
they
there.
did lose to the Vikings.
Exactly. So they're in there. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying if you're in a conversation, you're the Packers, the 49ers are in the conversation right now.
But they're limited offensively.
But like in the conversation, defense is legit though. Like D'Amico Ryans is really good. The Bucks,
Houston Texans legend D'Amico Ryans, only Houston
who
Texans
got
legend.
just blown out basically by the Chiefs, and then the Cowboys. It's really those teams that are like in the mix there.
You're not putting the Rams in the conversation at least.
It's hard after last night. I guess I would, but maybe not. Like Stafford's not been right, and they have not looked like good. So maybe not.
You verbalized it as in the conversation. I'm just going to verbalize it this way: the NFC is going to be won by one of these teams. All right, the Eagles, and I'm just going by division. I'm not like ranking.
You're talking about the 1 seed.
No, I'm talking the representative of the Super Bowl. It's going to be won by one of these teams. And again, not a ranking, just going by division. The Eagles, the Cowboys, the Vikings, Packers, Bucks, Niners.
I think that's it.
I think like the night, like if we have to assign like a minority here and then take that over the field, right? I want the Niners in, and then I'm willing to say, I'm willing to say you can have. I'm willing to even leave the Rams out, and you can have the field.
You have to leave the Rams out right now.
Well, so we have 2 from the East, 2 from the North, 1 from the South, 1 from the West. So we're willing to say that the NFC is going to be won by one of those 4 teams, right? And like if you want to leave the Rams out, you can also argue it's so difficult to repeat, like the likelihood of that, blah blah blah. I mean, so Eagles, Cowboys, Vikings, Packers, Bucks, Niners. That's it. Nobody else. Like we're willing to say nobody else has a chance to win the NFC.
Like who would be like the long shots, like the Giants,
the Cardinals. I think because you have to have something special, and like we know that Kyler can be special, so like you have to have something special that gets hot, and so it would either be the Cardinals. Or if the Lions just like kept up this like offensive rate, or if the Seahawks kept up that offensive rate, but those are really, really long shots.
Yeah, it's tough.
Wow. Okay. So, we'll see what the Cardinals are able to do this Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's move on. As always, we go in divisional standing. So the Eagles got all the love. They're in first place right now, as they have been all season long. The Dallas Cowboys, Brandon. Holy crap! What on earth? This was impossible. I said if they won 2 games before the bye,
that's right,
Dak Prescott, that would be a huge win. They've won 3 in a row. And so like this is such a, I don't know the numbers behind it. I know that like scoring is down. It feels like a defensive league right now, which is why the Eagles do seem so dangerous because they kind of have the most stable, potent offense. But Cowboys, one of those defensive teams, and what's unique about them is like their offense isn't even set, right? Like that, like unlike the Niners and Jimmy Garoppolo, who's their permanent quarterback this season, the Cowboys don't have Dak Prescott. And miss me with this Cooper Rush stuff. That's the most annoying thing in the world right now. But I think some people would say, yeah, well, Dallas, they beat the Giants and the Commanders, blah, blah, blah. Like, who has a good win? Like, it's so difficult. Like, the NFL's kind of trash right now. You know what I mean? Like, nobody has a great win that you're like, wow, that is maybe the Chiefs, right? Like beating the Chargers and the Bucks, maybe, but like even that's like stretching a little bit because they lost to the Colts. But Dallas defeated the Commanders 25-10. Once again, Carson Wentz coming up small, coming up short. The Commanders have never beaten an NFC East team. And the Commanders have never beaten the Cowboys, never beaten the Eagles for that matter. And they've never won a game in those black uniforms, which as the game went on, were kind of nice. Like I hated them less as the game went on. The only thing I didn't like, I don't know how much you saw this, was the lines bordering the last name on the back. They had these lines sandwiching the last name. I could live without that. Other than that, kind of nice.
To the point about like the NFL mostly being bad, I think there's like 5 good teams. Like in my power rankings,
I don't even think there's 5, but you're right.
Well, I feel good about my top 5, although there's a caveat with one of those. So I have Eagles 1, Bills 2, Chiefs 3. I have the Dolphins 4. If Tua is healthy, then I feel good about them. And then, which is a big if. And then the Ravens at 5. And then everyone else below, like I have the Vikings at 6. I don't feel good about that. Packers at 7. I don't feel good about that.
But do you agree that like in that conversation, the Cowboys are in a unique spot in that like their offense isn't even set. Like we've seen not even a full game of their intended offense. And that wasn't, even just like, oh, just put Dak back. Like Michael Gallup wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like this is still an offense that kind of has yet to arrive. And they're still either 3-0 with this like lackluster offense, which is pretty impressive. I mean, I got to hand it to Mike McCarthy. I know nobody wants to. I have no problem handing it to a lot of people, but Mike McCarthy has to be on that list for me.
Well, their biggest strength is lined up with like two of their last opponents' like biggest weaknesses. Like the Giants can't pass protect, and I'm not taking credit away. I'm just saying like it's very fortuitous. And honestly, throw the Bengals in there too because their also offensive line situation, especially earlier this year, was a disaster. So like I'm not trying to take credit away. I'm just saying it's very fortuitous that like every team's like glaring biggest weakness happened to line up with what the Cowboys are able to do right now. And certainly that is a very good strength to have and will pay off against other teams who aren't even necessarily as weak as the Bengals, Giants, and Commanders' offensive lines are. I will ask you, like, I'm not even going to troll you about Cooper Rush in terms of like, should he start? But so like, stupid. I will ask though, I think it is fair to wonder like when is the right time to play him if Dak isn't looking right? You know what I mean? Like in terms of like the injury is like he's just not looking right with the injury. It's like because there's going to be a conversation at some point if he's struggling and it's like he's just not healthy enough to play. Like he can't get the ball to where it needs to be accurately. And at what point is a 100% Cooper Rush better than that like 60% Dak?
So I appreciate you framing the question this way because this is a fair question, right? Like it's a stupid question to say, should Cooper Rush start over a healthy Dak Prescott? Neither of us believe that should be
no
the
one's
case.
actually debating that.
But people are. But,
I mean, like for unserious people are.
Right. Yes. So this has bought them time. So like if I have to like, kind of paint, the like cover of your question, it's like, how do you want to spend this time? What's the best usage of the time that Cooper Rush has bought you, right? Like you're playing with house money right now. Like, how do you want to spend it? And so the Cowboys haven't ruled Dak Prescott out for this week's game against the Rams, but the Dallas Morning News, actually a little bit before we started recording, reported that he's not going to play. So it seems like Cooper
Jerry say he's not going to play, or like
Jerry did not. Jerry said that he can't grip a football yet. However, if you want the full timeline of it all, on Monday, Mike McCarthy said that he wanted to see a full week of practice before Dak was able to play, which obviously heightened the importance of Wednesday. But on Tuesday morning, Jerry went on the fan, on 105 the fan, and actually didn't really say anything. I was really proud of him. Like he didn't give anything away. But he did say he couldn't, grip a football right now. But again, like that's really against his general like optimistic sort of twist on things. And then Tuesday afternoon, about 3:00, the Dallas Morning News reported that Dak's not going to play and that it's going to be a Cooper Rush. And so I thought, and this is going to be proven wrong, I thought that the Cowboys might suit him up because Will Grier is who the Cowboys have promoted to be the backup quarterback for Cooper Rush every single week of this process, but he's out of the elevations that you can give to a practice squad player. So I thought, well, they're not going to want to cut anybody. Maybe they'll suit Dak up like as an emergency, like he's kind of ready, but Cooper Rush will still start. That's not going to happen. Jake McQuaid, the Cowboys long snapper, has a torn tricep injury, or has a tricep injury rather. And I don't know the like extent of the injury, but his season is over. And so the Cowboys have signed 2 long snappers to their practice squad, and they've since signed Will Grier to the 53-man roster. So they can, still have their long snapper by way of elevation. So they don't have to worry about that is my point. But so he's not going to play this week. I don't think the opponent has anything to do with it to me. Like, I don't think that you look at it if you're Dallas, and I know it's very difficult to say, well, he's got to come back because this game against the Eagles is massive. And it is, right? Like there's no doubt. You and I just said these are 2 of the 4 teams who can win the NFC this year. And this is their first match. By the way, like we've complained so much about the lack of juice between these 2 in games in Philly. We got it.
Don't jinx it. I feel like there's now something weird is going to happen. It's like the whole rosters get hurt.
But it looks like we're getting it. Did you knock on wood or the microphone?
I knocked on my desk.
Okay. Well, it sounded like you knocked on the microphone. Anyway, I mean, like you don't have to play 65% Dak or whatever it was you said. Like that's how you spend the house money. You can wait until he's 100% healthy. I think so the Cowboys have 4 games left before their bye at LA on Sunday, which looks winnable, right? Like if the Niners can beat them with Jimmy Garoppolo, why can't the Cowboys do it with Cooper Rush?
It's a short week for the Rams too.
Exactly. And then you've got the Eagles. So like, let's call the Rams a coin flip. Let's say it's a loss against the Eagles. I think you can call the Lions a coin flip because you never know which version of that team is going to show up. And then I think we both think they're going to beat the Bears. So if we just do the math, they're winning 2 of those games, right? 1 coin flip in the Bears. If you're 5-3, I thought they'd be 3-5 in like a miracle sense when Dak was hurt. If you're 5-3 at the bye, like, dude, like count your lucky stars, like be super grateful for it. You don't have to press Dak. You don't have to rush Dak back. You can take your time. You have to be so patient here. That's what I think you do. I don't think you get caught up in the Cowboys Eagles of it all, the division rivalry, the Sunday night game, whatever. I think you wait. I think you are disciplined and you wait until he is 100% healthy, because this isn't about beating the Eagles on October 16th. This is about getting to the NFC title game in the Super Bowl in the later days of January.
Yeah, I've been saying the Eagles can afford to be patient this week in terms of not to totally overlook the Cardinals, which, by the way, this could be a trap game spot because we didn't really talk about that game at all. But
let's talk about the Cowboys. Actually, here's my whole point about the Eagles. Right?
Well, no, it gets back to it. Is that the Eagles have these injuries, but I think it's interesting how we're thinking about it differently in terms of patience. I'm saying, like, I think they can afford to be, like, let's say Avonte Maddox, like, he looks like he might be able to play this week. If I'm the Eagles, I'm like, I don't force that, because next week is a really important game, and I would try to give him that extra time and have him for that game. I'm saying, save that player for that game and have him return then, because that's a very important game. And I think it's interesting because you're saying it as like, you don't have to. I mean, you don't think they have to play Dak against the Eagles, or even if take should out of it for a second, you don't think they will, because they absolutely will. You know that.
So I know nobody wants to give Mike McCarthy any credit for anything. I think if Jason Garrett were the head coach, they absolutely would. I mean, I don't think Jason Garrett has whatever you want to call it to stand up. I think McCarthy does. I think McCarthy says no, if that's what he wants. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't know what he wants, but I think McCarthy has enough sway. I mean, think about it, Jerry. Like, the whole world is hanging on every word to understand when his quarterback is going to play. And Jerry Jones was on the radio on Tuesday morning and didn't give a clue. Like, if you don't think that has anything to do with Mike McCarthy kind of nipping this whole, like, whisper stuff in the bud, then, like, you're not paying attention. Mike McCarthy's having an influence on this stuff. Again, I'm not saying, like, all hail Mike McCarthy, greatest coach of all time, but, like, that is a positive influence that he is having on this organization as a whole. So I think McCarthy is disciplined enough. And I think, like, if you want the answer to that, look at his history. He never rushed Aaron Rodgers back when he didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, during his times in Green Bay. And we all, like, no, I love Dak, but, like, as important as he is to the Cowboys, he isn't to the Cowboys what Aaron Rodgers was to the Packers, certainly in those days. The only times we saw them rush Rodgers back were when it was absolutely necessary. I think back to, was it 2013 when they beat the Bears in week 17 for like the NFC North title? Yeah. And like, I just remember like a late touchdown to Randall Cobb to win it in Chicago, whatever. And like, those were the moments like when Aaron had the calf or whatever it was, like they did rush him because they had to have that one game.
Right.
Again, this game is important. This game is important. It's massive, but you don't have to have it. You can lose even both of these next 2 games. You can go into the bye 4-4 and be in well position. I mean, we've done this game several times with the Eagles, but like, just entertain me here. Let's say Dallas went into the bye at 5-3. Like we're both kind of saying is pretty fair. After the bye, they got and let's presume they have Dak after the bye and a healthy Dak, right? They've got they're on the road at Lambeau and then on the road at Minnesota. You want to say they split those 2?
Sure.
Okay, so that puts them at 6-4. And after that, 6-4, they got 6 wins already. The Giants on Thanksgiving, that's a win. The Colts the week after, they get a week and a half. That's a win. That's 8 wins. The Texans, that's 9. The Jaguars, I mean, it's in Jacksonville, so you don't know. Whatever.
Dougie P gets the win.
Fine. Then you got the Eagles, even if you want to call that a loss, at Tennessee. We don't know how it's going to be, but that's probably 10. And then Washington to end it. Like, you're talking about a 10-11 win floor if you get to the bye at 5-3. If you steal this game in LA, like, who knows? If you beat the Lions, who knows? I mean, like, it's possible. The only game between now and the bye that, and even if Cooper Rush were the quarterback for all of them, that I feel terrible about is the Eagles game. And that's why I think you don't rush this situation at all.
That's what it all comes down to. It's going to be huge. It's really big. I mean, like, if the Eagles like win that again, just because of their schedule ahead too, it's like they could just roll. And that Christmas.
I do think you have to make the decision now, though, right? Like, I think I'm a big fan of, like, my dad always talks about, like, make your decisions when you're not emotionally compromised, right? Because like that, like, trust yourself and sound judgment. And so you have to decide right now, unless, like, you set whatever barometer it is, like, unless Dak achieves this, he's not playing this week, he's not playing next week, whatever the case may be. You can't let yourself, like, go beat the Rams and the Eagles lose to the Cardinals and be like, oh my gosh, now we got, you know what I mean? Like, no, you made the decision when you were not emotionally compromised. That's how I would handle this.
Play with emotion. Don't let emotion play with you.
Wow. Where'd you steal that from?
Chip Kelly once said that.
That's a great way to send us into the break to hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back. While we were gone, Brandon went and uncovered an artifact that Chip Kelly gave him while he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Can you show us what that artifact is, BLG, and explain the story behind it?
Yeah, it's a smoothie, and it's clear now because of how it, aged and everything. But
is that an Nalgene?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a sponsor, but there you go. Free advertising.
No. Not a sponsor. The mixtape itself does not have a sponsor yet. We're working on that. But BGN Radio and BTB does. Head on over to Righteous Felon Craft Jerky. Get yourself some, some free jerky. Maybe not free, but like you got to pay for it.
Discounted.
You can get a discount. You can get a 15% discount with BGN's code, or through the October 16th game, you can use the Cowboys code BTB20. Right. Look at that.
Boom.
What's your favorite
BGN
flavor?
15 for the BGN code. What's the what?
What's your favorite flavor of Righteous Felon Craft Jerky?
It depends on the mood.
I like Nelson Mandela. That's my number one.
I'm partial to the biltong, honestly.
Sure.
I don't know if you have that yet. Like, I think the Darth garlic is really good, and it's like more tender than the jerky, and I like that. Some people prefer the chewiness or whatever of the jerky. I like the biltong the best. If I'm going with the jerky, the Franklin bourbon or bourbon Franklin, one of those two is really good. It's like a different, it's a unique kind of taste. It's good.
This is my last question before we get back to football. You're watching a movie, you're on the couch, whether you're by yourself, you got a group of people, maybe not a movie, but like you're sitting and kind of like watching something. It's a cool, moment for Brandon Gowton. What are you snacking on? Like, what's the optimum like vibe snack?
Movie's too long. Can't watch.
Okay, yeah. So you're watching a show, like I'm talking like a 30-minute, 40-minute experience.
I cannot watch like a food show without eating. I have to be eating something. Like, how can you watch, like, let's just say Triple D?
You gotta eat something soft, like jerky. Like my wife, man, I love my wife, but she eats a lot of chips when we're watching stuff. It's like, hey.
No, chips are a great TV snack. I stand with her on that. Ideal snack? So, are you a Takis guy or no?
No, not my thing. But, I mean.
They make this thing, Takis Crisp. It's like Pringles, but like there's like Taki seasoning on there, and they're better than Pringles. So good. Also, I'm a Stacks over Pringles guy now. I used to be like Pringles guy through and through.
Not a sponsor either.
Not the same. The Stacks has a better crunch to it, and I think it's a little bit saltier too, which I like. I'm a big salt guy.
I mean, again, look, chips are fine. I don't have a problem with chips, but while we're watching something, I need to hear it. Chips are not, like that's, you want to eat something while we're watching something that's important. Ice cream, fruit, cake. I mean, but anything with a crunch disturbs the whole audience.
Cheez-Its also very good, very strong. I could just house a whole box of Cheez-Its. Love Cheez-Its.
Before we get to the rest of the division, this is the spot where we will now be handing out our non-NFC East Award of the week. We award somebody not in the division the most NFC East moment of the week. Do you have any contender yourself? Because I do.
No, let's hear yours.
A favorite of the NFC East mixtape. All right, now our first one went to Brandon Staley. Right, last week. This week it goes to his not Padawan, his mentor, whatever, his guider, whatever. I don't know what the opposite of Padawan was. I don't know the Star Wars verbiage, but
Master.
That's probably the best. Jedi Master. His Jedi Master, Sean McVay. It is the most NFC East thing of all time to show up when you're kind of like, it's your moment to take hold the way it was for the Rams, take hold of the NFC West, went all the way opposite here, east to west, like looking for gold. And incidentally, and this is your moment. Take hold. You're the reigning Super Bowl champion. Like all the energy is going your way. Everybody thinks that the other team is down on their luck, but yeah, they've kind of had your number. And you know what you do? You just blow it. You don't even score a touchdown. Like you're just a complete and total abject failure. You're a fraud. The Rams. We have said this. One of the only things that we are united in. The Rams are frauds. Shout out to Sean McVay, this year's winner of the non-NFC East award.
Interesting. Maybe I can go with the Vikings. Beating the Saints via double doink from the Saints, which obviously once upon a time helped the Eagles get to a divisional round game against the Saints down in New Orleans. So they were in New Orleans. Not that they were at the right end of the first time. But anyway, so the Saints are now 1-3, RJ, and easily could be 0-4. And I know you love when I mentioned that the Eagles have their first round pick, so I'll mention it again.
By the way,
Saints picking at 4 overall right now.
So the Saints lost the debut of their black helmet, which looked better than I thought it would. I didn't like the original photos, but looked good in the game. They lost, obviously, as you mentioned. The Commanders lost in their debut of the black uniform. I don't think we've seen any of the other black helmets yet this season, but kind of a curse. So watch. When are the Eagles wearing it?
It's like later in the season. I forget they announced that it's like week 12, and it's later on in
All
the
I'm
year.
saying is watch out. Black helmets are 0-2. New black helmets are 0-2 this season. Obviously, the Ravens and Steelers have won. But
did we talk about how the Super Bowl winner will not be picking 32? Have we mentioned that? It's funny because like people keep saying that the Eagles are because they're currently undefeated, and although that's silly because it's postseason draft order, obviously based on finish, but there will not be a 32nd pick in the first round because of the Dolphins having to give up their pick. So
it's amazing how the Dolphins are now connected to like two different awful scandals, right? Like they'd have like, you could argue nothing to do with one another, but kind of like everything to do with one another systemically. But whatever. Let's get to the New York Giants. People asked, Brandon, if they were the worst 2-0 team of all time. All right. I thought that question was kind of silly.
I don't even think people asked. People said it.
I thought that was kind of silly. I think they are definitely the worst 3-1 team of all time. Like they are bad, dude. Like they are so awful. I saw Aaron Nagler tweeted that London has never had a matchup between two teams above 500, which speaks to like, hey,
oh
like,
my gosh,
like that's so mean. Like, why do we do this to them? You know what I mean? This is the first time that's happening. Both the Packers and Giants are 3-1, so like history being made even before kickoff. But the Giants 20-12, the final win over what would have been the other worst 3-1 team of all time, the Chicago Bears. Daniel Jones got hurt, but did have 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. I read out of The Athletic that his read was literally look for the tight end, if not run. Like what on earth? Like like that is so embarrassing for the Giants offense. Obviously a building phase for them. Tyrod Taylor came in, got hurt. We'll see who their quarterback even is this week.
Yeah, they're working out some guys. Maybe they bring back Jake Fromm. Ed Valentine, our good friend, said in the SB Nation chat today, like our work channel in Slack, that he thinks Fromm is the most logical option based on how obviously he not only played for the Giants last year, but also has experience with the Bills and Dable from their time together in Buffalo. So, I mean, I'd rather see Saquon. And did you catch that at all? Saquon's some of his playing time at quarterback last week. I think that's much more fun to me. And like Saquon's been so good as a runner. And honestly, like that's the thing. They knew he was going to run the ball.
That is our worst aging take of all time in the history of the mixtape. I mean, and like I think we had reason to feel the way we did.
Exactly.
But he is the outlier. Like that's okay. Like he's the exception, and good for him. Like it's way more fun to watch this offense when he's rolling.
It's also still bad for the Giants long term, probably.
Dude.
He's this good, and then turn him to a big extension, and then unless he does somehow keep it up, and we're wrong again. But like, from a process standpoint, it's not the bet you want to make. Maybe the results, this will be the outlier and exception, whatever. But I just don't love betting on that. But yeah, I know it's not going to happen. But I honestly would love to see, even if not for the full game, because obviously you probably have to have some passing threat at some point. But I would do a decent amount of like Saquon Wildcat, because why not? And he's fun and he's really good and you're getting him the ball. I would do it.
I think don't take this the wrong way, but what this team reminds me of, you've said the 2021 Lions, not in the success standpoint, but the 2021 Eagles, like as far as how they're just like running the ball now. Like I mentioned the Eagles box score, thing I talked about. Do you know what the shortest long carry was for the Giants runner? So there were 4 players who ran for the Giants on Sunday.
Yards.
No, not quite. Brightwell had no carry. He had 1 carry for no yards. But other than that, Matt Breida, 13 carries. 13 yards was his longest run of the day. Tyrod Taylor had a 13-yard run. Daniel Jones, 21 yards. Saquon Barkley, 29 yards. Like you could kind of see like, again, some like hybrid of the 2021 Eagles and whatever the Ricky Williams, Ronnie Brown Dolphins, offense was, like the true Wildcat. Like just do it. Just lean into it. I mean, do you know how many receptions there were in this game? How many passes were caught by the Giants players? 9. 9. I mean, it's just not there. And to be fair, like, Sterling Shepard's hurt. Kenny Galladay, dude, Michael Gallup has as many catches as Kenny Galladay this season, more yards, 24-22, and obviously more touchdowns. He has 1 to his none. Kenny Galladay has 2 receptions this season. All right. One of them from Daniel Jones. Trayvon Diggs has 2 receptions this season. One of them from Daniel Jones. I mean, just a huge miss. I mean, the guy's getting paid, so good for him. But man, like, and that's not this regime's fault. I mean, that's, you know, Dave Gettleman, whatever. But yeah, this team stinks though. Like, it feels like their ride back down to earth is on the way. So they've got the Packers this week, and I know we don't think highly of the Packers right now, but you know they're going to lose. I mean, this is the next run for the Giants: the Packers, the Ravens, the Jaguars, the Seahawks. They could lose all 4 of those games. They're going to lose all 4 of those games.
Well, probably at least 3.
So I mean, say they lose 3, that drops them to 4-4. At the bye, they come out Houston, maybe, right, like 5, so they get back above 500. Detroit at Dallas. I mean, it's just, you know, they've been. I think they've been with what Giants fans have wanted. They've been cute and fun and spunky. That's all you can expect.
You know, they're taking advantage of a very easy schedule, as other teams in the NFC East. I like, for my Eagles rooting guide this week, you know, because I do that every week. I don't know if you do that still too.
Well, it's a little too early for that, but
you know, I think it's fun to find some kind of rooting interest in.
It's fun when you have, like, the Cowboys don't have a first round pick next. Like, you have the Saints. Exactly. Like, you have more material to work with right now.
So you brought it up this time, not me. Nice. Yeah, I would say it's still, like, if you're an Eagles fan, you should be rooting for the Giants to win this game, because I would say the Packers are a bigger threat to the Eagles getting the 1 seed than the Giants are to the Eagles, like, winning the NFC East or being a bigger threat to the Eagles. Like, I'd still be
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I'd still be more concerned about
well, and to that point, well, so the Eagles do play the Packers this year, right? They still have yet to play them,
right? So what if you lose to them?
So, well, what I was gonna say is, like, if that weren't the case, like, at least, you know, like, the Cowboys still have to play the Giants one more time. Like, you control that or you still have to play the Giants twice, actually, the Eagles. So, like, you still control your destiny to a larger degree against the Giants. Than you do the
I would take my
if you're really worried about that.
More so. I still think it's like, because the losses are going to come. Like, they'll be 4-1, but like you just said, they'll probably lose to the Ravens and the Jags, and then possibly the Seahawks. Maybe not. We'll see. But the losses are going to, and they still have to play the Vikings this year. They play the Cowboys again, as you mentioned. They play the Commanders twice. The Commanders might be able to steal one of those. More losses are going to come on the way. They'll probably end up, though, like, with a decent amount of wins here. They're probably going to finish with maybe like 7 at least, just by virtue of how bad their schedule is. And they already have 3. They're not actually good, but they're not good, but credit to them for actually beating some other bad teams and getting to this point.
Last thing on the Giants. What did you make of the, like, full throwback? So they wore not the black helmet, but it was the throwback with the throwback jersey, like very 80s, 90s looking Giants. I loved it personally. Like, make that your full-time uniform.
Most people do. I just don't like how it just doesn't make sense to me. The helmet is so dark and the jersey is so bright blue. I don't like that. It should be obviously to be. That's dumb.
I mean, to be clear, like, originally it was dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, because originally it should have matched, but now it's like nostalgic. So, like, that's the only part of it that's cool. I think, like, whatever shade you want to make it, the helmet needs to say Giants. We're all in agreement.
I agree. The worst Giants, part
of what makes the NY suck is it's lowercase. Like, you're supposed to be the Giants.
It's fake. It's a fake thing.
Well, even if it's real, like, you're supposed to be literally the Giants. So, like, how can you go small case, like lowercase on your letters? It's ironic. It's stupid.
We did not talk very quickly. We did not talk about someone they might be adding to their team. Familiar face, an old NFC East foe, Odell Beckham Jr. working out for the Giants. How about that?
I think Odell is very smart, and I think Odell knows what he's doing, and I think Odell knows what connecting himself to the Giants does for his name and SEO and all this stuff. There's no way on earth. Yeah, there's no way on earth that Odell is considering signing with the Giants. Pete Sweeney mentioned on the SB Nation NFL show on Monday that the Packers could be in line for him. That makes sense. That's a whole different discussion. But yeah, like, Odell didn't sign with the Rams midseason and win a Super Bowl to learn, let me go sign with the Giants. Like, it's dumb. Unless they, like, ripped off, you know, they won these 3 of these 4 instead. You know what I mean? Like, unless they put themselves in legitimate playoff position.
Or they gave him some ridiculous amount of money. Yeah.
Right. Okay. By the way, they had Jalen Smith, speaking of old NFC East friends, back on their roster for Sunday's win.
That's probably why they won.
Wow. Okay, let's move on to the last place team in the division.
I think there's only one way to start this, and that is by going to hogshaven.com.
Okay.
And looking at this article that I'm seeing. Actually, I gave the quote tweet yesterday from the BGN account because I responded to sorry, Hogshaven, but a tweet that's going to live in infamy for the rest of this
So we're
season
talking about
for
the same tweet, right? Like you're just talking about the story behind it.
yeah. So the tweet was, if you guys don't remember it, Giants suck. Eagles almost got outscored by the Lions, and Cowboys going to get sunned on national TV tonight by Tom Brady. Washington with a dub on the back of Quattro TD throws from their QB. Everyone doubted. Life is good. A emoji with sunglasses. That was September 11th, week 1.
Okay, so we're talking about different tweets. I mean,
So
like, I think this
now,
is silly, but whatever. Go on.
now the Hogs Haven has a tweet / an article up with the title, "It's time for the Commanders to make a QB change."
Okay, I saw this tweet. Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, like, this was my most extensive look at Carson this season. Like, there's a lot wrong. I mean, he's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. But it's not just Carson, and like plus they didn't trade for him to bench him, 4 games into this thing. I tell you what, Jahan Dotson is the real deal. Like
Yeah.
they,
We
speaking
got
of
that
Pete
one
Sweeney,
right.
yeah, like Pete says that Jahan Dotson is the best rookie in this year's class, or receiver in this year's class. I don't know that I'm willing to go that. Like Chris Olave looks awesome. I mean, but so I'm not willing to say that, but he looks very, very, very good. Terry McLaurin got wiped out by Trayvon Diggs. Talking about sunning people, like Trayvon Diggs is the father of the NFC. Do you know that he has streaks running of interceptions happening in like consecutive games against every NFC East team? So Trayvon Diggs owns this division. Yeah, dude. I mean, like, what is there to like about this team? Like, I mean, like, there's nothing. Like at least if you're the Giants, you're saying like, look, we're like the infection is leaving the body. You know what I'm saying? Like that's like Dan Snyder took a picture at midfield of AT&T Stadium. Like that just feels like nothing's changing. You know what I'm saying? Like if he's getting to make appearances and shake hands and kiss babies and stuff like that, like that just makes you feel like it's all staying the same. So whatever the report was from the Washington Post last week that he was going to be selling, like that doesn't feel real anymore.
They're 1-3. They have 2 division losses already, both to like the top threats in the division as well.
One at
They
home.
also and then they also have an additional loss to an NFC team, having lost to the Lions. So like
wild card contender, like that would be a tiebreaker, right?
Exactly, a team who could be in contention there. So they're in really bad shape. Like this isn't like a 3-1 where you lost to a couple AFC teams. No, it's like this is one of the worst possible 1-3 starts you could have, and they're banged up. I know it's not. And I said this last week after the Eagles beat the Commanders. It wasn't like Carson Wentz played terribly, but there is also true. More than one thing can be true, as we like to say on the pod, that the receivers had some really bad drops in bad spots. Offensive line was not good. This idea, though, that like all Carson needs is a good offensive line, he'd be fine. No, like that's not true. Like he'd be better, sure, than he is right now, but like he also exacerbates poor offensive line play by holding onto the ball and fumbling the ball. So yeah, it's just no good. And also, there is a point where they're going to have to make a decision on Wentz because there's that stipulation where if he plays 70% of the snaps this year,
which the Colts were so stupid about. But right, go on.
The Commanders are giving up a 2023 second round pick, which is probably going to be like in the 40 range, given how bad this team is going to be, versus giving up a third round pick. So they're going to, maybe it's not now at this point, like going into week 5, but it's going to be soon because like they're going to have to make a call on that.
Again, it's nothing I feel positively about with this team. I mean, I don't know what Carson's future looks like in the NFL, obviously.
He's done after this year, dude. Like he's not
like I don't know that he's done. Like he'll be on an NFL team. But like who okay,
no.
let me put this
no.
Let me put it to you this way. Who's cashing checks longer in the NFL? Like starting right now. Carson Wentz or Cooper Rush?
Rush. Because
like Rush is now like the new Colt McCoy, right? Like he's your like backup that's just hanging out for a long time, right?
But Carson is not going to be willing to be a backup. No way.
That's
no
the thing.
way.
Like I hate to like speak about this on someone because like I don't know Carson on a personal level, but like this dude needs a humbling. You know what I mean? Like it just
he's needed it for years.
No, but like it didn't happen when he got benched. Like I think he like internalized that as like, oh, I'm this victim, and like I think to a degree he was, like to a small degree. I'm just saying he wasn't 100% wrong. He was like 98% wrong, but like that's all I'm saying. And I know you've said this many times, but like immediately being handed the keys to the castle in Indianapolis makes him feel like, oh, that 2%, you were right. Like that was much more than 2%. And now again in Washington, like, oh, whatever. Like, and I don't think like losing to the Eagles, losing to the Cowboys, I don't think any of that's like humbling him. Like this dude really needs like to reckon with himself like what his NFL career is. I think like it doesn't help that, you know, after like the trades, it's always like, well, the 2017 Carson Wentz was amazing. No, that was a long time ago. Like it was so long ago. I feel very, very confident. I think actually I would like you to apologize for saying that you thought the combination of Ron Rivera and Ryan Fitzpatrick was better than Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. Because Ron Rivera is one of the worst coaches in the NFL. See it. He's one of the worst coaches in the NFL, dude. So did you see what happened at the end of the first half in this game?
No.
So Dallas had the ball, and you know, it's kind of flirting with getting in field goal range, and Ron Rivera burns a timeout. Right, like, okay, you're trying to get the ball back, right? It's like end of the half sequence, trying to stop the possession, get the ball back, whatever. Dallas winds up punting. Okay, so you got your possession, Ron. This is what you were kind of like in this for, and then he just hands it off, like just to like burn the clock. Like, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, are you just like you want to like prove to everyone you have no faith in your offense? You have no faith in your quarterback? Like, there's no synchronization, there's no organization happening here offensive. Like, what does he add? People say this all the time. Like, well, what does Mike McCarthy do? What does Ron Rivera do? Like, what does he do to make this team functional or even kind of good? Nothing. And I think the like Washingtonness, and this is where I'll give him some slack. I think the Washingtonness is starting to get to Ron Rivera. This is the quote I thought you were talking about. JP Finley does a great job covering Washington, tweeted out on Monday. So this is a 2-tweet thread that I'm going to read. The first one says, Rivera making clear he knows fans are frustrated, but says the team is pushing hard to flip things around. And the second one is the one that took off. Ron Rivera on needing to improve. S word. This organization's got 5 championships. You F word kidding me? So I think that Ron was saying like, you know, this organization in general is in a fine place. Relax or whatever. But like that, the moment you start pointing to the past is when you're done. You know what I mean? Like you are so done at this point in time. Like I know people are saying, well, watch out. Frank Reich might be the first head coach to be fired in the NFL this year. First of all, who told you that? Who was on that train? But Ron Rivera is making a charge himself.
Yeah, he should be up there. I know there's talk of, like, I was doing a Q&A exchange last week with the Commanders people at Hogs Haven, and I asked, like, is there a chance like Rivera's not back? And they're like, well, they're probably going to finish out the 5th year of his deal, which is through next year. And I'm like, I don't think so, man. Like, at some point, they're going to make a change. And it's not like, you know, getting the right head coach is going to fix everything for them. Although another team that in theory could be in play for Sean Payton, I don't think he goes there, but I'm just saying in theory.
A franchise is not afraid to throw like money to solve a problem or something like that, right?
I mean, they'll be in the mix, yeah, and could up the stakes at least for someone else to end up getting him. So they have their next 5 games, let's say, because that sets up before they play the Eagles again. And give me a record prediction. They're currently 1-3.
Let's just go game by game. They're losing to the Titans.
Okay, so they're 1-4. Do they beat the Bears in Chicago?
So the only thing the NFL hates more than international games are Thursday night games. Dude, the next 2 Thursday night games, by the way, last week's was awful, obviously, but like kind of boring. This week we get Denver, Indianapolis, and then after that, Washington, Chicago. I think they lose. I think they're that bad.
You think they lose Titans, and I think you have to give them 1 win out of the
Fine,
Titans.
I'll give them the Bears win. Fine.
Okay, so now they're 2-4. They lose to the Packers, right?
They're beating the Colts. That is full on happening.
They beat Carson, gets his revenge in theory. Yep. So then they're 3-5.
And then they lose to Minnesota, lose to Philly. They're 3-7. Season's over.
Wait. So they lose to Minnesota, so they're 3-6. Okay, so now at this point, is Carson Wentz even the starter against the Eagles at that point? Because you're flirting with the.
I see why you're doing this, because that game's in Philly. His return to Philly as opposed to.
He might not even start. You're flirting with that 70% threshold at that point.
Yeah, I mean, so hold up, hang on. Let's play this out. So we've got him at 3-6. I know we do this all the time, but so we're firmly saying Washington's 3-6. Let's do Dallas next because New York's irrelevant. Dallas is 3-1 at the moment. We said they were getting their 5-3. I'm sorry. So they're 5-3 at the bye. That's Dallas's bye week, the week that Washington would lose to Minnesota. We have Philly. I mean, even if you're conservative, right? Like Philly's 4. Say they lose 1 of Arizona, Dallas, right? Again, just to be conservative, like for the purposes of the exercise. So they're 5-1 by beating Pittsburgh, 6-1, then at Houston on another stinker of a Thursday night game, the D'Amico Ryans Bowl. So they're 7-1. So you're looking up at a 7-1 team. You're 3-6. You're 4.5 games back because you've already lost the first game with 5, 6, 7, 8 to play. It's just impossible.
And the Giants could be ahead of them still too at that point.
That's true. I mean, you're right. Like the Giants won't be in playoff contention, but I mean,
but they're still like ahead of them. So like,
right.
it's just like, I just think at some point you're gonna have to face the music and not play him. You're gonna realize he's not gonna be back next year. And I think so that's why another reason, like for the rooting guy this week, I would like to see the Commanders beat the Titans because it gives them more, it makes more of an opportunity for them to delude themselves and to continue playing Carson Wentz later into the season.
And you want to see that. Well, I think you want to see that because it makes the Eagles' chances of victory greater. And plus, like, if Carson Wentz gets traded to the Commanders and we don't get to see him return to Philadelphia, like, what a huge miss.
That would be terrible. That's another reason why I think it was such a. I know, like, it's tough to make the schedule, blah blah blah, but it was such a bad call. I think to have him debut against the Eagles in at FedEx Field.
That game is Monday Night Football, by the way. Just again for the purposes of everything involved here. Okay, so then let's just put it this way, because I want to see that too. We're never like rooting for the Commanders. I hate the I root against blah blah blah. I never root for them, blah blah. Let's root for the Commanders this week against the Titans, the most inconsequential win possible against an AFC team, and then against the Colts. Because you're with me, the Colts are frauds. Like I want to see that happen. I want to see them have to have that egg on their face. I would love that.
Well, another reason too is because I don't know if you've heard this, but the Eagles own the Saints' first round pick. So, Giants and Commanders winning and staying ahead of New Orleans also a nice thing.
Anyway, okay, so let's pick some games for this coming week. But with a little bit of context, besides I think these players are going to win. So Washington, we mentioned we're rooting for them, but that's a different thing than picking the game. They are 2.5-point underdogs against the Tennessee Titans, according to our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook.
I have to take the Titans. Not that I think they're good, but I like Vrabel, and I think I like what they have going on.
Yeah, they're finding themselves a little bit. Stumbled out the gate, and you say stumble, but the Giants game's really the only stumble. They got blasted by the Bills. There's no shame in that.
That game was close. He came down to missing a field goal at the end. So it's they're fine. They're not an atrocity. They got blown up by the Bills. Okay, so what? Those are really good.
The second largest spread of the week, just making sure here. Yes. Second largest spread of the week belongs to London's game. I'm sorry, the third largest. Oh my gosh, the Bills are 14-point favorites over the Steelers. But so the third largest, the Green Bay Packers are 8-point favorites over the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough with the lack of a quarterback clarity in situation. I don't know if the Packers cover because they've just struggled.
Well, you got to pick. That's the whole point. Are you going to lay the points or not?
I'll take the Packers.
I'll lay the points. The Giants don't have a quarterback.
They're going to win.
The person who's playing quarterback for their team isn't even on their roster right now. So
I think I might have to take the Packers for my lock of the week
Make sure to listen to the Explanation NFL show. You can get all of ours. Screw you, Lions, for letting me down last week. But anyway, so the Dallas. Actually, before I ask you to pick this, do you know what the Cowboys opened up as? By the way, we write opening odds every week on every team side here at SB Nation. The Cowboys opened up as 6-point underdogs against the Rams. Do you think that has moved or stayed the same?
That's weird. Why?
I thought the same. I thought the exact same. And I tweeted that. And even all these Cowboys fans are like, why is it weird? Why is it weird? Because they're 3-1 and
big number.
But yeah, not just that they're 3-1, but they're finding ways to win. They're limiting opposing offenses. The Rams offense looked questionable before Monday night.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying it should be favored, but it shouldn't be it shouldn't be underdogs by 6 points.
So do you think that has moved or stayed the same?
I think it's moved.
To what?
I'm gonna say Rams favored by 4.5.
Oh, look at that. This guy. I wish we had sound effects, but 4.5 is the line.
I will take the Cowboys outright.
Outright. Look at
Rams
that.
are a short week. Rams don't look right. Stafford's not been good, man. He's just not. He doesn't look right at all.
I'll say this, and obviously, I'll talk more about this at Belonging the Boys throughout the week. I'm gonna take the Cowboys outright too, but we'll take
Rams also have offensive line issues.
Right, we're gonna take the points. Let's be very clear because we're not dummies. But I will take the Cowboys outright when I have to in our expert picks at SBNation.com. But I think this is I know you're seeing it. There's some chatter oh, maybe Trayvon Diggs actually is an elite corner from all the people who doubted him. This is he's gonna lock up Cooper Kupp. You know what I'm saying? And that this is a late afternoon window game. This will be a holy crap. Cooper Kupp had 2 catches for 16 yards like Trayvon Diggs. This will be that game. So yeah, I'll take the Cowboys.
I think there is a path where Aaron Donald just like wrecks Cooper Rush and just like, causes like multiple fumbles and like pressures him into multiple interceptions or something like
But
that.
that
That's
path exists both ways. Like it's not even just Micah Parsons. Like, look, Aaron Donald is amazing. Like, I'm not trying to minimize that at all.
I'm
But
saying
like,
that's how the Rams win if they do.
right,
Yeah.
right. But like, if it's not Micah getting to Matthew Stafford, it's DeMarcus Lawrence or Dorrance Armstrong or Donovan Wilson getting home or Jaron Curse, who's going to return this week. Like, I've never had this much fun watching an NFL defense, or at least watching a Cowboys defense. So, but the biggest line between our two teams, at least, belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 5.5-point favorites against the Arizona Cardinals. I'll go first here. I think that's a big line. All right. However,
Sound like me.
because the Cardinals have had such trouble, Pete. We mentioned Pete a bunch of times. I thought this was really like well put. He said they're like a lawnmower that you have to pull 17 times. That's the Cardinals offense. And I don't know why it is. Like, on paper, they have enough to be, at least they have a legitimate quarterback, you would think. I don't like that. Like, I know we've talked, actually, you know what? I'm going to do the BLG. I'm going to take the points, but I think the Eagles win.
Yeah. I mean, I do think this has like trap game potential in terms of what a trap game is. I think people get trap game wrong all the time. People they misuse that label, but this has that potential because you just beat the Jags, kind of like, big win over your former head coach. And this week you're traveling to a place where you have not won since 2001. The Eagles are 0-5 in their last 5 games in the desert out there in Arizona,
including an NFC Championship game loss.
Including that. And they have this big look ahead game next week that you could easily be like, the Cowboys are next, huge game. Like that's like the prime trap game conditions. Doesn't mean they're going to lose. Doesn't mean I think it will be a trap. I'm just saying that's like, if you're talking about what a trap game is, this is that. Those are the conditions for one.
Both the Cowboys and Eagles play in the afternoon window this week. And so, like, to your point, like we talk so much about like narrative and like the moviness of like the NFL. You can see like Eagles fans being like I don't know, like the Eagles being down like by 10 points in the fourth quarter and Dallas holding on against the Rams, and every Eagles fan just kind of thinking like, oh, we're gonna be 4-1, they're gonna be 4-1. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of see the like look ahead starting right then. So
I just think like this Cardinals team is not good, man. There's not a good football team. All right. So what have they done so far? They got blown out by the Chiefs at home.
Right. No shame in that, but it happened, right?
Not the worst result, but like, okay.
They came back against a bad team in the Raiders.
They came back. The Raiders blew a 20-point lead, right? 20-0 lead. And
they couldn't hang with the Rams, who are bad and stinky.
Yeah, couldn't hang with the Rams at home again. A home game. Beat by the Rams, who aren't any good. And then they struggled a little bit with the Panthers before ultimately, beating them. Didn't look amazing. Didn't beat the Rams senseless. Or sorry, the Panthers senseless or terrible. So
we're both taking the points, right? And taking the Eagles to win.
I'm taking the Eagles to cover.
I'm so proud of you. Look at you finally believing.
And even dating back to last season, the Cards are like what? Because they finished last season on like a 1-4, 1-5 run, or like they haven't been a good football team for some time. And I've never really been the biggest Kyler believer, especially without DeAndre Hopkins. If DeAndre Hopkins is playing this game, it's a different story. But he's not, and that's a big loss for them. Eagles are a little banged up, but like that didn't even matter a ton against the Jags. So I know it's a tough place for them to play, so that does give me pause, and I've said that even before this week. But I think the Eagles win, and they advance to 5-0, and it's a big, big game next week. The undefeated Eagles host the one-loss Cowboys, and it's a big game.
And maybe Dak Prescott's return. Wow, holy crap! Yeah. Let's get out of here, Brandon. Name 3 random ingredients that are used in food, and we leave.
3 random ingredients. I'm gonna go parsley.
Okay.
I'm gonna go oil.
Okay.
Olive oil, to be clear. It's extra virgin olive oil. And then I'm going to go with something different. I'm going to go with chives.
Well done.